All right, so now moving into our very first session, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Shelley Mann. Shelley Mann has been working in the field of food insecurity for almost 12 years and is the program manager for Swipe Out Hunger. She has helped foster SNAP outreach programs at over 60 food banks in 45 states and has transitioned her work with Swipe, helping to build programming for their more than 400 campus pantry network from her home in Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you for being here with us today, Shelley.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm assuming yes. Good. Okay. Hi. As Emmy said, my name is Shelley Mann, and I am the programs manager for Swipe Out Hunger. I'm new in my role, so it's a little bit funny to be talking so openly about college hunger, as it's something that, like, you know, I've been working in hunger for a long time, and I had talked to Swipe Out Hunger when I started, and I said, college hunger. I definitely know it's an issue. I've always known it's an issue. I've been working on food insecurity for a long time, but I guess college students just were not the thing that I was the most focused on for years and years. And so when we were talking about things in the interview, one of the topics that came up was, what are you passionate about? And I thought a long time about whether I was going to take this job or not, because if you asked me, quite honestly, 3 months ago, where college hunger found on my, where college hunger was found on my list of things that I'm really passionate and excited about, unfortunately, I don't know that it would have fallen in like even the top 30, right? And that's just honest. I just hadn't really thought about it. But number one is mobilizing young people. And mobilizing young people is exactly what this work is doing. I mean, we are really hitting a couple of things on the head when we talk about college hunger, because we are engaging students in this work. And so not only are we helping to solve food insecurity on college campuses, but we're teaching really important lessons to students about how to advocate for themselves, how to advocate for their communities, and also about something that is just an absolutely unacceptable issue in our culture, which is food insecurity in general. So today I just kind of wanted to take the morning. I know it's early. Everybody just like take a nice kind of, relax for a second. And I just wanted to chat. I want to utilize the chat function. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions in the chat function. Let me make sure that I can get that working for me here. Perfect. Okay, so why does college hunger exist? Is it a solvable issue? Those are the two things that I have been working on as someone who is new to this work, which I think is pretty interesting to get to read where all of you are from in the chat and what you all work on, because I am just steady fascinated by the number of people who've been deeply immersed in this work for a long time. And so as I've been sort of introducing myself to it, I've been thinking a lot about those two questions. Why does it exist? Is it solvable? A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go visit the pantry at UCLA. Now, getting to California and heading onto such a gorgeous campus, I was expecting this big, well-formalized, food pantry with, all kinds of cans and options for people. And I sort of expected that UCLA, as a huge university, would have this gigantic space, and it would be really cool, and I would get to see a college pantry that was extremely high functioning and putting out tons of food. A lot of assumptions on my end. So when I arrived, I found that the pantry at UCLA is in a literal closet. And I think it was a huge aha moment for me to look at this, school that's just a cornerstone of such a huge city and see that the campus pantry is no wider really than the desk that I'm sitting at now. And it stuck with me, because I think for a university of that size, I just expected there to be this huge program and ways that they're putting out food and helping to solve the issue. And I was a little disappointed at first, to be honest. And I thought about it and I was like, man, I really wish that there was more here for these students. And over the visit, I got to stand outside of the pantry with the pantry manager, and we were chit-chatting, and I noticed all of these students start to come kind of hang out in the hallway, and they're waiting for the pantry door to open, which I thought was interesting. And as soon as that pantry door opened, everybody came over, they started to get their food, they grabbed the things that they need, they headed to class. And I thought to myself, is this just a snack closet? Like, what's going on, guys? I had a moment where I was like, I don't know, this just doesn't like check out with what I've known about food pantries from working in the food banking world for so long. And I had a light bulb that this is genius. This closet is small, it's accessible. There's students hanging out, there's all kinds of snacks. People are just grabbing a snack, going to and from class, whether it's, a thing of almonds and cheese, or maybe a yogurt or something. And I realized that I would have no idea who the food insecure students that were accessing that resource were, because there were just so many students utilizing it. And it was a moment, one of the first moments I think I've had in this work where I thought like, oh man, I was so wrong about my first impression about this. It really offered the opportunity for people to just quickly stop by, grab something and move on. And that included the students that were really high need and the students who just needed a quick snack. So I think for me, stigma has always been the thing. And I know we talk about that all the time, but stigma has always been the thing that's been the biggest barrier in food insecurity work. I think it's the reason why hunger permeates so deeply. So it was really interesting to watch how something so casual, as like just a little closet full of snack food, with some meal staples like sprinkled throughout, where you could probably take them without everybody realizing exactly what you're taking. What an amazing idea to just make it accessible to everyone. Nobody asks any questions. And I've really been digging on that, because Swipe Out Hunger, we talk a lot about how college hunger is a solvable issue. And if it's a solvable issue, it's going to take a lot of innovation, and it's going to take a lot of different ideas and failing forward and things that might seem really unconventional. Coming from 10 years in the food banking world, of course, when I see a little closet, I'm going to be confused as to why this enormous university doesn't have a huge food pantry like the ones that I've seen all over the place. And then realizing that they're making the best use they can of the space that they have, and that they have done a kick-ass job of it. It's really exciting to see this kind of momentum. So as I've been digging into this work, I'm learning from everyone around me. I'm getting to go and chit chat with them and visit their pantry and take a look at the work that they're doing. So I just want to ask everybody if you could just chime in the chat if you can. My first question is that I just want to know, why do you think college hunger exists? So what is it about hunger on college campuses that makes it such an insidious issue? And then the second, well, we'll get to the second thing after you answer a couple questions. But yeah, so if you could just chime in and let me know why you think college hunger exists. Lack of awareness, yeah, definitely. Stigma and shame, I'm stuck on that. I really do. I feel like stigma is something that, cost of college, assumptions. Thank you, Bernard, because it's true. Food deserts, lack of transportation, cost of education, food insecurity doesn't stop at college. Yes. The cost of college. Yes. Cost of college and other living expenses. Yes. This primarily due to low income, barriers to access, financial constraints. Yes, yes, yes. All of these things. The pandemic has made it worse. Yeah, absolutely. Time. Whew. Time poverty. So every food bank that I've ever worked at has had a mission statement that was twofold. It was always something along the lines of like, feed hungry people today, end hunger tomorrow, right? It's always like a two-prong approach. And I've always felt like our charitable food system in general does a pretty good job of feeding hungry people today, right? Like there's food pantries available for folks. There are, lots of resources for people who just need to get food right this minute. But I don't know that the charitable food system has always done the best job of ending hunger tomorrow. So as we look through all of the answers that you guys are giving about why it exists, I wonder if college hunger as a solvable issue can't be solved until we solve all of these things. Exactly. Systemic issues will not end hunger if we do not address the root causes. Exactly. So as we look through this list of things that everybody has typed out here: time, the pandemic, stigma, awareness, financial cost of college. I don't know that we can solve college hunger unless we solve these other things as well. So that's a big ask. And I just want to open this morning by commending everybody on this meeting and on this call. I know you're going to spend today talking a lot about these things, but I just want to commend you for tackling such an enormous thing and for being willing to take a look at things like transportation, let's see, cost of living. God, these are great. Most importantly, time. Gosh, yeah, looking at all of these things, I commend you for being willing to tackle them and willing to tie them together and to take a look at our higher education system and say, this isn't enough. And people are paying to go to school and unable to actually make the best use of that school. What good is, an expensive semester if you can't even attend class because you are so low energy, or you can't focus because you don't have food or the resources that you need, housing, etc. So I'm really excited today to kind of get a chance to chat with all of you. I really hope that throughout the day you take a moment to think about what are the solvable things in college hunger. I mean, we know, right? We know that it's not just food. If we were to tomorrow, I asked my colleagues at a retreat last week, if we were to tomorrow get meal providers, dining providers to, reminder, send your chats to everyone, not only the hosts and panelists. That is something that's really easy to mess up on. So make sure that you're changing it to everyone. But yeah, in California last week, I was talking to my colleagues, and we were kind of discussing like, what does this look like? What does a hunger-free campus look like? And if we were to get all of the dining providers to just provide meals for everyone, would that solve college hunger? If everyone on campus had access to a hot meal? Chime in, because I'm actually curious what you guys think about that. I think for a lot of people, yeah, no, of course. I mean, I feel like it wouldn't, but if you look at the issue on paper, anyone who is on campus who needs a hot meal would be able to access one. So why isn't that ending hunger? There's no food at home. This would be a temporary fix. Exactly. I think it could really help out a lot, but maybe not everyone, right? So, my point is exactly what Jackie's saying here, in that like, it's not so easy. I think when we think about hunger is not just having access to a meal. It's so much deeper than that. It's, again, all of those issues that you were listing earlier about why college hunger exists. So I think, let's see, did someone say? It would help, but it wouldn't solve it. Shame would still come into play, definitely. We need to ensure that everyone understands the value of fulfilling basic needs as fundamental learning and student success. Lauren, stitch this for me on a pillow. It could be one aspect of the solution. Right, it's one aspect of the solution. So I think, again, it's the feeding hungry people today, right? When we're talking about feed hungry people today and hunger tomorrow, doing something like having dining providers provide hot meals to everyone does a great job of feeding people today, but again, not the ending hunger tomorrow. And I know you're going to have a lot of opportunities today to really think through some of these things and talk about them and learn more about the on-campus solutions that are happening all over the place and the cool things that people are doing to innovate. But I think the thing that's the most important is that we have the will to want to work on this issue. And, you know, just like me in the beginning of this work 2 months ago, you know, taking a look at college hunger as one of the top 10 things I care about, it just wasn't there. So how do we make that something that people really care about? How do we help move this issue into sort of the grander platform of food insecurity as a conversation on the whole? And I hope that that's something that we're able to talk about today and that we're able to address today. I don't know, do you guys have any questions? I am so much more of a, I like to interact with the chat and I like to talk to you guys. I want to know, you know, what's happening on your campus that is perpetuating that hunger. We have to break down the barriers to access, for sure. So those barriers, as they exist, you know, stigma, physical access, commuter colleges. Again, we've got that same issue where we're talking about what happens if dining providers were to provide all of the meals for all of the students that were on campus. We've got students that are online. We talk about ending student hunger, but what does that really mean for non-conventional students? And, you know, the focus gets put a lot on those four-year universities and then also simultaneously a secondary focus on community colleges, which is wonderful. And those people need our help and our resources. But what is the college hunger community doing for online students? Does anybody have any thoughts about that? High cost of housing. Some of my students are spending most of their funds on rent. That was another learning I had from the UCLA pantry. You know, Los Angeles is an extremely expensive city to live in. And one of the things that the pantry was doing that they told us had been really helpful is they're offering, or their community office was offering rides to people to get home all the way out as far as like Rancho Cucamonga, which is like very far away, every single night because people can't afford to live near the campus. More times than not, food insecurity is a symptom of bigger issues. Right, exactly. And we know those issues exist. We know that the charitable food system as a whole is not going to solve hunger, period, because it can't address those bigger issues, that housing, transportation, things like that. You know, moving food pantries from being just a resource for food to being more of, you know, an opportunity for students to access lots and lots of resources as a one-stop shop through, you know, kind of a basic needs hub model. How many of you, I'm curious, how many of you know what a basic needs hub is? Will you just chime yes or no in the chat? If you have a basic needs hub or if you've heard of basic needs hubs, yes, good. Yes, good. Heard of it. Don't have one, wish we did. Let's see. I think for, what was this I want to read? Jackie, I think for us, the pandemic and our food pantry being so new to the culture of the college, our pantry isn't a resource listed in syllabi, like it's not mandated. Interesting. Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like a lot of you know a little bit about basic needs hubs. So basic needs hubs are a really wonderful sort of expansion to the model of college pantries. Basic needs hubs allow for kind of a one resource area for people to access all the things that they might need in order to be able to not just survive, but thrive, right? So we're looking at it from, I think it's like the Hope Center defines it with like 5 different characteristics, right? Affordable transportation, affordable housing, healthcare access, family needs, I believe. And there's one more other than food insecurity. But yeah, so what those offices are doing is they're saying, we offer food. This is, food pantries are kind of a comfortable place for people, comfortable enough place for people to go. They know to go there if they need help. So instead of asking someone to come and get their food at the food pantry and then to move along and go to 4 different other offices on campus or even off campus for that matter, because they need access to some kind of a living situation that's safe and affordable, or they need healthcare. We want to make it easy for people to get everything that they need in one place. And that doesn't mean that we're asking college food pantries to, provide healthcare navigation assistance. What we want is for those food pantries to be able to streamline those services. Something that happens to people who live in poverty a lot throughout their, throughout the time that they're in need, is that they're asked to recount their story over and over and over again. They're asked to recount their story, they're asked to fill out new paperwork, they're asked to attest to their poverty time and time and time again. And honestly, it's exhausting. And I think that, being able to put all those things in one place and saying like, okay, tell us your situation, we're gonna put you where you need to be. We're going to make sure that you have the resources that you need. We're going to connect you to the folks that you need to connect you. We're not going to ask you to spend, tons of time sitting on your computer trying to Google and find where you need to go, walking around campus trying to get to the right place. Having a one-stop shop allows students to come in as they are with their need and find the resources that they need. I've been telling my colleagues at Swipe Out Hunger for the last 2 months, we don't need to be the experts, we just need to know the experts. And that really is my life's mantra. Being a connector is so important, and being able to recognize when you don't have the answer, and giving, handing out the information that people need to be able to access the things that they need to survive. Shelly, could you describe the role of Swipe Out Hunger more in detail? Sure. Examples of your most successful programs. What's your platform or mission statement, and what can we learn from your best practices? Oh my gosh, there's so much with Swipe Out Hunger, and I am going to talk about a lot of that. I will be on a panel this afternoon. And on that, we're going to talk a lot more about Swipe and what Swipe does as an organization. We are an anti-hunger, food insecurity. Hold on, let me just pull it up here. I'll give you the classic. Let's see. So Swipe Out Hunger is addressing food insecurity on college campuses through 3 different prongs. Number 1 is on-campus solutions, so things like food pantries, meal drives, Swipe meal drives, and then also through advocacy, and then through student empowerment, which is really something that we're thinking a lot more about in terms of how do we connect these pantries to each other in a different way. So we're thinking about that prong a little bit differently now, but on-campus solutions and advocacy are huge. The Hunger-Free Campus Bill. If you're not familiar with it, we just found out that it is coming to Louisiana. So we're really excited to watch Hunger-Free Campus play out in a southern state. But you can also go to our website and it'll tell you lots and lots of things about the way that our programs are run. And then again, this afternoon on that panel, I will be there to talk about that. In healthcare, we screen for social determinants of health and then refer to social service agencies that can help address the need using closed loop referrals. Wonderful. That's exactly it. That's 100% something that, we really should be moving to in an anti-hunger work. I think we talk about those social determinants of health in terms of like what, of course that includes hunger, but I don't think that we talk about the social determinants of hunger in a way. So, we can't, again, address hunger unless we're also addressing those social determinants of hunger. So hopefully today is that day for everybody where we get to really dig into some of that. Could you share some strategies for developing a basic needs hub for colleges and universities that don't have one? Yes, I would love to. So something that you can look to as a model, basic needs hubs are very prevalent in California. In fact, there is funding for them. So that's something that's really exciting to see, that there's an opportunity financially, and that our state government is also investing in basic needs hubs. So when we're looking at a pantry, how can local food pantries better support colleges? Perfect. So when we're looking at a pantry, most of the time, the center of the pantry is the food. Food is the center of so many things for everybody, right? It is a comfort. It is often, something that is not just filling a caloric need, but nourishing on a deeper level, right? But pantry food often comes without choice, and it comes without sort of the cultural connection and the going to the grocery store and picking up the things that maybe like, you're a student, you're on campus, being able to cook for yourself for the first time, and maybe you want to make some of those comfort foods that you used to have at home. So choice, dignity, equity, killing it, Cindy, 100%. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So, that's the core of it. We want food to always be the core of the food pantry. And we're not trying to take away from that by asking that these other services through basic needs hubs exist. However, again, we know that food just is not the only issue. And as we build momentum around solving food insecurity, we have to bring those other things with it. So the idea of a basic needs hub is, and I'm gonna pull up the full definition because I do think that it's worth being really thoughtful about when we talk about it. I don't want to use the term loosely because it's not loose. Basic needs hubs address several things. Number one, nutritious and sufficient food. Number two, safe, secure, and adequate housing. So that could look like, just being able to offer the resources for students who maybe live off campus and need some help finding somewhere that they can stay. We know that homelessness on college campuses is rampant. And quite frankly, until, I don't know, not that many years ago, there wasn't very much data on food insecurity on college campuses. And we're seeing that same trend emerge in terms of housing on college campuses too now, where like we're getting lots and lots more data than we used to about it. And it is a huge problem, as you probably all well know. So we want to make sure that people have access to a place to sleep, study, cook, and shower, and that it's affordable. The next thing is healthcare to promote sustained mental and physical well-being. So that in a campus pantry, again, we're not asking you to have a doctor's office, but I do think that it's worthwhile to make sure that your campus pantry or your resource has what it needs to help somebody who doesn't have health insurance. Do they need to be connected to a local free clinic? Do they need to be connected to a place where they can be assisted by a navigator to choose a marketplace plan? A lot of states have adopted Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion allows for a lot of different people to enroll in Medicaid if your state allows it. So, there are places that you can send somebody there, or having those things there, a computer for people to be able to fill out this stuff. I mean, a lot of the time, a lot of my career has been spent helping folks sign up for food stamps for SNAP. And so, running SNAP outreach programs it's hard work, but the act of signing up for food stamps is really like, it is a cumbersome act that has very minimal steps most of the time. It's not that the process of what you have to fill out in and of itself is super complicated, though in some states it definitely is. So sometimes just having somebody with you while you fill these things out is an enormous value add. So having a computer in your pantry where people can sit down and fill out paperwork like this, and maybe have a volunteer sit with them and help them navigate some of the language. A big problem in Missouri for a long time was that the food stamp application asked a question. It said, do you have any liquid resources? And most people, your average person thinks liquid resources, boy, that sounds expensive. When in reality, like, they just want to know if you have any money in your bank. So people would mark no, and as they would turn in their application, the state would run their social security number and say, oh, they misled us on their application, denied. So even something as simple as just sitting there and helping folks navigate the language is in and of itself providing a resource. So healthcare, making sure that you have something available to help folks sign up for that. Affordable transportation, this is a huge one. At first I was like, how do you help provide affordable transportation on campus? And I am glad that I asked the question that I did to a bunch of college hunger folks, because they shot me back tons of very cool ideas, including grocery shuttles. I mean, the reality is college campuses are, even though higher ed has the barriers that it does, college students are open hearts. They're open hearts and they're open minds, and they're innovators at the very core. And they haven't been tainted by the workforce for a long time. So, listening to the transportation solutions that students were coming up with, God, so smart. Taking students off campus to help them get groceries, taking them to the pharmacy, doing like shuttle runs for the schools that are larger and maybe a little further away from places like pharmacies and grocery stores. Resources for personal hygiene care. Now that is something we at Swipe Out Hunger are taking really seriously lately. We did a webinar yesterday partnering with the Organic Project to talk about period positivity in college campuses. So making sure that pantries are stocking personal care items like tampons and pads, making sure that they have, soap, things that students need to help them feel like a normal part of their campus. Being able to go to the dining hall and sit down and have a meal with your friends is an awesome gift that we can give somebody through Swipe Out Hunger. But if they can't go because they're on their period and they don't have the resources that they need to be able to manage that hygienically, what are we really doing, right? So making sure that we have those things available to folks in pantries is huge. Doesn't have to turn into a Walmart. And I think a lot of people get really scared about tackling personal hygiene, especially because sometimes it can be a little taboo in a funny way. But making sure that we are keeping those things in stock all the time is critical. And then the last was family care. And family care could mean a lot of things. Non-traditional students are who we typically think of when we talk about family care, but I don't think that that's true. Somebody had pointed out to me the other day that you see college students who are caring for elderly grandparents who raised them. That's important, and just as important as a parenting student, in my opinion. If you are someone who, has an elderly parent at home or a grandparent who raised you, that you are also trying to simultaneously take care of and get your education, to me, that's no different than a parenting student, and there just aren't a lot of resources for those types of things. But if there was going to be a space where those resources would be developed, it would hands down be college food insecurity, because the innovation in this world is just unparalleled. So yeah, so that's kind of what we hope a basic needs hub addresses. And we found in our last pantry survey, we asked all of our college pantries, we have over 400. We recently acquired KUFBA, the College and University Food Bank Association. So our numbers have grown really quickly. And we surveyed them, and we found that only something like 30% of our pantries described themselves as having a basic needs hub. But when you looked at the services that were offered, if you offer, any of these other services other than food, technically you're a basic needs hub. And we were finding that all of these campuses offer lots of these different, lots of resources for these different things, and have little modules set up all over the place to help them with some of these other issues. And so they really are basic needs hubs. They just don't know to designate themselves that way. So, when we talk about, stepping up and providing basic needs, it really might not be as big of a step up as you think. You may already be doing this work. In fact, the odds are you are. So building on this, how can campuses with limited resources approach this work? What are the most high impact practices? 100%, you don't have to be the expert, you just have to know them. So the thing that you can do is compile as many resources as you can, filter those out yourself, do the labor for the student, right? The same things that you would want to do if you had a list of, 6 places you were going to maybe call to help you get health insurance. Call them yourself, find out what the process is like, pick the ones that are the most streamlined and the ones that are the most efficient, and do the legwork and the labor for the students. I think sometimes that is that's the gift of time. We were talking about earlier, why does food insecurity on college campuses exist? And someone had said time. And that is definitely, a gift that you can give back by doing those sorts of things. So even if you have a limited resources, even if your college pantry is the size of my desk, like the one at UCLA, there's a lot you can do, giving people back their labor, giving people back their time. Definitely helpful. How can local food pantries better support college students? Oh man. I think for me, the answer to that question has always been in the types of product that food pantries offer, making sure that the food that you offer is accessible for people who may not have a lot of cooking ability. Also, hand out cooking ability. Please, please, please. I tell people all the time, hot plates, microwaves, toasters, toaster ovens, those kinds of things, the kinds of stuff that you can put in a small apartment or that are allowable in a dorm room can be a huge difference for somebody. So, if you can't raise the food, or you don't have the space for the food, think about what it looks like to raise money to be able to help people, get the things that they need to be able to cook at home. Choice, stigma, equity. Hi, Shelley, appreciate your insights. What do you see as the role of policy like hunger-free campus bill in building food security? It is the only answer. Well, that's not true. I used to be able to say that, I think, but I'm not sure that I feel that's the case now. Policy is certainly at least number 2 in terms of how we're going to solve this issue. I think I've really changed my perspective in the last year, and I think community is number 1 now, where I used to think that everything needed to be changed through legislation and policy, and that's been the focus of my career for a long time. And now I'm realizing so much that it has a lot to do with community. But if we're going to solve this problem on a greater level, it is going to take the help of legislators, and it is going to take policy. So, hunger-free campus bill, if you've not taken a look at that and the components of it, It's definitely on the Swipe Out Hunger website. Our founder, Rachel Sumek, started Swipe Out Hunger when she was a college student at UCLA. And she also wrote the Hunger-Free Campus Bill and put it together, and it has been being slowly adopted in states across the country. But even at that point, even with that bill, and if you're able to get the funding for it, it's still, again, the same thing where we're like, if dining hall providers provided all the food, would that solve hunger? It doesn't. So, these are they're just building blocks in that bigger picture. And I think that, the work will always have to be divided into that sort of direct service and the policy and future ending hunger today, or feeding hungry people today, ending hunger tomorrow sort of model. So I think having hunger-free campus bills, not only is the bill in and of itself really positive and good and helpful in allocating funding in a helpful way, but more than anything, it's making people talk. So, it's bringing up the issue, it's making it something that people are having to focus on. So if nothing else, that is an enormous win. Does anyone here have a basic needs hub person or team? If so, where are they housed? Would this person be more case management or like a referral counselor? And I've seen both. I've been doing a lot of digging into the basic needs hub stuff in the last couple of weeks. And I will tell you that a lot of the California schools, all of the University of California system schools have a basic needs hub, and it's pretty well outlined on their website. So you can look at that too. And there are definitely case management folks at those schools because those basic needs hubs are big enough to merit that. But referral counselors are definitely, the smaller schools have something very similar. What about providing contraceptions like condoms in a basic needs hub? Absolutely, huge part of a basic needs hub. I think when we talk about basic needs, we have to be frank, and even talking about the pads and tampons and providing cups and reusable period products to campuses, and what it looks like to make sure that you're degendering language around those things on campus. Those things feel taboo. They feel hard to talk about for a lot of people, especially regionally. You've got schools in the South and schools in the Midwest that maybe just haven't, like, those things are a lot more taboo in those communities. So providing contraception is huge. I think, a lot of times your Planned Parenthoods and your clinics that offer STI screenings and things like that are more than happy to provide free contraception or something along those lines, at least, to your pantry, in an opportunity to start the conversation about making sure that people are taking care of their sexual health too. When we talk about healthcare to promote sustained mental and physical well-being, that includes reproductive healthcare of all kinds. Here at COD, we have local pantries that provide extra food recovery to our campus pantry when they have too much. Yes, so that's the thing, right? Like, the more we're networking and the more that we are communicating with dining providers, we're communicating with local restaurants that have extra food, you end up getting all kinds of connections and are able to provide a really special and much more nutritious and much more fun offering of foods than just the normal pantry stuff. Let's see. Taking away the emotional labor is so important. Yeah, exactly. Doing those things on people's behalf is also it's an act of love, right? Like, going through and saying, I mean, anybody can Google, I live in Omaha, so I could probably Google signing up for Medicaid in Omaha. And I would get a million places that, have a navigator type person around, someone who will help me fill out the paperwork if I need to. But anybody can print that list out and hand it to someone. But it takes a totally different kind of love and community to go through the list and call, make sure that that place is still open. Are they still offering those services? How long does it take? Getting like a real scope for what you're going to be referring somebody to, it makes a whole lot of difference. When you hand somebody a piece of paper with a bunch of phone numbers on it, the odds of them calling them, medium to slim, right? But when you say, okay, here's a list, I've called all of these and I can tell you that these 3 are the ones that I would use, and here's why. They're, XYZ quickly. They are, whatever the case is, It's love, and it shows somebody that you care about the thing that they need help with, and that you want to make sure that it's efficient, and also that you respect their time. Crystal says, Jackie, we don't have a Hubbard team. Special Populations Transition Specialist. What a sweet title. I help mitigate obstacles and connect students to community resources. Amazing. So that's a very cool role to be in, and that's speaking to exactly what we're talking about here. At Prairie State College, we have a nearby clinic that provides us with free condoms for the students. Awesome. Yeah, I know there are lots and lots of resources for that kind of stuff, if that's something that you're interested in. If you are a member of the Swipe Out Hunger Network, we have a really cool digital engagement platform called The Feed that allows for everybody to just kind of like chat with one another and access all of our toolkits and resources. And we put the period positive pantry, I know it's a lot of P's. We put that stuff on the feed yesterday. So if you are interested in, accessing some of that, I can make sure that we have links available publicly too, so that you can sort of see what that looks like in terms of making sure that your pantry not only provides food and those things, but also hygiene kits and period products and condoms and things like that. Could you share some strategies you've seen in your work for reducing the stigma associated with using a pantry for students? So that is something that I am on at Swipe Out Hunger in general, and me personally, are on a huge journey with, because what is stigma, right? And are students experiencing stigma from other students? Are they experiencing it from faculty? So those are questions that I've been digging into over the course of the last few weeks. And I think that the answer to reducing stigma, and I feel almost silly saying this because it seems so obvious, but I feel like the answer to that comes in just allowing access for all and stopping making people attest to their poverty every time that they need help with something. If somebody shows up at the pantry, they need the food, whether it's to grab a quick snack in between classes like I saw at the UCLA campus, or whether it's to get a whole box of food to take home to their off-campus apartment where they live with their children. It's the same. So I think for me, making sure that it's the same and making sure that the access is the same for those folks is in and of itself one of the most positive ways to help get rid of that stigma, to make sure that we're not saying like, oh, if you need this food, it must mean that you are very poor, which is definitely a thing that we press on people sometimes without realizing it. It's also important to provide diapers for students with children. Huge. Lack of access to diapers can cause health problems for children, further contributing to stress for student parents. Absolutely. I think when we're talking about the basic needs hub definition and looking at what the family need side of that is, I think we're finding out quickly that diapers, formula, things like that are important, right? Senior care items are important. Having depends and things like that for people who may have elderly family members or family members who, need that extra medical help. Let me see here. Yeah, so while we're sort of on the topic of parenting students and students who have a responsibility to care for older family members, making sure that you have things at your college pantry that are also family friendly is super important too. And I think that speaks to that basic needs hub module a bit, in that like it's one thing to stock a bunch of food that we know that the students on campus are going to love, but having some available items that are, for seniors or for folks with physical disabilities. I had visited a pantry in Colorado, and they had a whole box in the back of just items that were like very senior specific, like stuff you wouldn't think of, like the food thickener, water thickener. You know, those things are super expensive, and it's just like a powder that you put into liquid to make it kind of a jello-y texture for folks that can't swallow liquids without aspirating. And I thought to myself, what a weird thing to keep at the food pantry. And she told me that it is so popular for folks with seniors in their household that they actually have to ration it. And they can't give people full containers of it. They have to actually pour it into individual bags to give out. So, you know, things like that, you might not think about that on a college campus, but having those types of things in the back or having them available for students who do have, you know, dependents at home of any age is super important. Let's see, Emmy says, could you share some strategies you've seen in your work for reducing stigma associated with using pantries for students? Right. Yeah, I think that is, what experience have you had with pantries meeting cultural or religious needs? What can a campus expect from a partnership? Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about stigma, but I do want to address this question about cultural or religious needs. I think that's something too that we can really integrate into our work. For a long time, food pantries have just kind of always had to exist by the thread. And so it's been a lot of asking for basic staples, asking for canned proteins, peanut butter, tuna fish, mac and cheese, those sorts of things that you think of when you think of a food drive. And what we're moving into now is a time when people are much more aware of the implications of food. I think the pandemic brought that out in a lot of people, that food is more than just, you know, calories, it's nourishment and it's comfort. And so when we talk about cultural food, we talk about how culturally relevant this food is are the pantry stocked with things that, you know, make sense for the student population. It is very tough, especially when a lot of our food insecure students are international students, to have the foods available that might make them feel comfortable and that might make sense for them culturally. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we should not stock those items. But I do think that it's something that we should be serving our campuses about. Talk to students about what makes them feel comforted, what makes them feel whole. At our retreat, the Swipe Out Hunger retreat last week, we started reading Emergent Strategy. Well, they've all read it a bunch of times, but we're reading Emergent Strategy, Adrienne Brown. And in it, she talks a lot about centering pleasure. And I think that we do a lot of work, you know, trying to meet the baseline, where we're like, okay, we just need to get you those calories. We need to make sure that you have access to food so you can focus in your class. And what we're not thinking about is like, what is the pleasurable experience that we could be providing for this person through food that meets their cultural needs, that meets any kind of medical needs that they have, and that also is good. Food should be delicious when it can be. And I think that we forget sometimes to center pleasure in that way and make sure that our students have the things that make their hearts full as much as their stomachs. What can a campus expect from the partnership when they join Swipe Out Hunger? We are an enormous network now. We are growing every day. New campuses are joining our network. It's so exciting. My role is going to be to help develop sort of a more formalized programming for everybody now that we've almost doubled in size in the last year. But joining Swipe Out Hunger means access to our extremely robust network of partners, network of resources, network of potential legislation. We work really hard to make sure that campuses just have as much support as we can provide them in those areas. And, you know, working with us means having 400 friends and other pantries that are doing this work that you can talk to on a daily basis if you want to, or whenever you need help. You know, we're building a lot of training modules. We're looking into some things that, for example, the tampon and pad project that I was talking about, the organic project is going to offer like a special bulk discount for Swipe Out Hunger schools. So it's things like that that are really the value add and what is exciting about being a member of Swipe Out Hunger. I personally am so stoked about it. I've been in, like I said, in the food banking world for a long time, and it's very cool to join a network that is just so innovative. There's so much happening, and the palatability colleges have for innovation is just unparalleled. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the next year. What about the changes since COVID and the lack of use of the pantry because of changes from being on campus? Yes, huge. In our most recent pantry survey, we actually found that 40% of our schools were offering online ordering from their pantries. That is something that in as long as I have been working on this issue, I have never seen it that high. I think at my last food banking role, we had surveyed participants, and we found that only like 4 or 5% of our pantries were offering some form of online ordering ahead of time. So that is, you know, that's a significant uptick. And I think, you know, even big corporations like Target, the Target near my house used to only have you know, 4 drive-up spots. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about this notification. I'm trying desperately to figure out where it's coming from. So only had 4 or 5 drive-up spots, and now there are 30. So I think that's something that college pantries and pantries in general, and just the charitable system as a whole needs to consider, is that the world is changing a little bit that way. And so, you know, people being off campus, having a pantry or a place off site that offers people the opportunity to order online and come and pick up those bags, it's not nearly as complicated as it sounds. Pet care can be an issue, huge issue. At the UCLA pantry, they offered some really wonderful resources for students that had pets with them, including like affordable places for spays and neuters, food and things like that. So there's definitely, you know, when we look at somebody's whole life, again, with the pleasure stuff, having a pet, a service animal, or having a pet in general can be such a positive experience for someone. Why wouldn't we want to help them with that? It's great. 5 more minutes for questions and answers, and I think that was a moment ago. So I think we're pretty much wrapping up, but partnering with college food service, I'll take this last one. Companies should be something all schools should be doing. Here at COD, Sodexo partners with our food pantry in many ways, and I'm sure there's more that we can do in the future. Absolutely, and that's actually a wonderful note to end on, because I do think that, you know, we really should be looking to those partners to help with the work. We know that the dining providers, they want to help, they do. So, you know, but they're also profiting a lot off of the work off of college campuses. So let's work with them to find a solution somewhere in the middle to help bring the dining providers in on the work. And Swipe Out Hunger has really, really capitalized on that with the swipe meal drives and donated meal swipe programs. We have lots of campuses who their dining providers are matching those donated swipes, or they're donating swipes themselves. So we definitely want to engage them. And let's see, Emmy, have I got everything? Do you have anything else for me?
I haven't seen anything else in the chat. It seems like you hit everything really well.
All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for indulging me in a little conversation and back and forth this morning. And I will be on a panel this afternoon if you'd like to talk more about Swipe Out Hunger and the solutions that we have on campus.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much, Shelly. This is Deborah Edelman. I'm not, for some reason, my camera's not turning on. really think you started us out with some provocative questions. Is this a solvable problem, and something that will guide our conversations throughout the day? We have now time for a 5-minute break. So everybody stretch, go get your coffee, whatever you need. We're going to hear from 2 individuals doing work to enact policy change around food security for college students. So see you back in 5 minutes.